Hello there, friends. Today is 1/29/2022, and today is the Odin Project vlog day 50. So, we completed, or I completed the DOM Manipulation and Events module all the way through. What you see on the screen here is this is the practice at the end section. I was kind of underwhelmed. Again, nothing against Top. Just usually at the practices, you get some not hand holding, but you get some opportunity to get on the text editor and learn by doing, which is how I learn best. And this was a video tutorial, which is kind of different. It was fine. You basically watch somebody else, this JavaScript 30 dude. He walks you through one of his courses on creating. Basically, I won't go through it, but basically a virtual keyboard that makes sounds when you press the keys, going into JavaScript, and he's using manipulating the DOM and using different elements that we learned, and they encourage you to code along with him, as they just wrote right there in the text. I did not do that. I just watched, just to be honest and fully transparent. I probably should have, and you guys probably should go ahead and code along. But he kind of starts in the middle of it, so I'm not sure. I didn't dig into it, basically. I'm not sure how much work goes up to that point, goes into coding that from scratch. But so I just watched that. It's like a 30-minute video, and then the next one, number 2, is he has another video called Event Capture, Propagation, and Bubbling. And this basically talks about the real short and sweet of it is propagation is basically when you have like nested divs, and you click on the inner div and there's 2 divs outside of it. Your propagation means that the browser will register an event click that you actually didn't click, but it registers an event action click on div 3, div 2, and div 1 if div's in your middle, so to speak. And then the bubbling is the recording going opposite. So like even though you clicked on div 1, I know maybe it's hard for you to follow just me explaining it, but he visually goes over in the video basically, and then the bubbling is going in reverse, so it will go div 1, div 2, div 3, and you can actually set different parameters in your JavaScript to either enable or disable propagation and bubbling, depending on what you're after. There's different applications for each. That's like a 10-minute video. He does a pretty good job, so I'm not going to spend any more time on it. And then the additional resources, again, I still feel like I'm missing a lot out of this as far as depth of understanding for DOM. So I started perusing some of these, and a lot of them are like reference material. So they're really dry reads. There's not a lot of activity in them. There's not a lot of exercises to do. So I think I've finally, that's why I'm doing the video. I chalked this one up to having this in the back pocket. So I made a couple, as we went in the last video, I documented a lot of this, and I put, I set some of these as shortcuts so that I can come back to it later and reference it as needed, because I'm sure I'm going to learn DOM more when I'm doing it and through the struggle than I will from just reading endless amounts of reference material. So with that said, I think the best way to handle some of this here is we're just going to go through some of the learning checks. So where we left off, and we'll just go from there, and then I won't leave you hanging. I will. I did create some through some of the exercises in the middle of this. They have you do some kind of inline exercises, kind of like we did yesterday on the video. I did those, and I kind of arranged them in a way we can learn from them. So I'll get you to the text editor here in a minute. So or the code editor. So where I left off yesterday, it was how to do events in the listeners. So I'm just going to click through these, and we'll just briefly go over them. Again, there's an expectation here that you either are going to read this or have already read it. So please please read it. Don't skip any of this. My brevity here is just simply so we can get through it and we don't have a 30-minute video that nobody will watch. So we stopped here basically. So this goes through the different types of events. There's 3 primary ways to go about it. You can attach function attributes directly on your HTML elements. You can set them on event on the DOM, the DOM object in your JavaScript, or you can attach event listeners to the nodes in JavaScript. And the third one is the best one to use, and that's basically they go through each method type. This is adding it inline on your HTML method. That's method 1. Method 2 is taking that inline out and just having an ID there. And some of this actually will be in the editor. I'll go through here in a little bit with you as a fun little exercise. And then the JavaScript on this one is separated out into its JS file. You create a constant variable, and then you select your query selector to btn, and then you do an onClick function, and then an alert hello world. I will say too, they say here in bold, need to review arrow functions, click the link, and that takes you out here. And so I actually wrote this down on my cheat sheet on my wall, because if you remember a while back, I had mentioned in another video that I don't need to learn this, don't need to know this, because I don't like the way it's laid out, because my mind just doesn't really work linearly like that. But guess what? I need to learn it. Because as you'll quickly see today, a lot of examples and a lot of functions are wrote with the annotation of the arrow function expression syntax setup. So this is, I wrote this part down just so I had it as a quick reference. This will be needed, so I will get myself familiar with doing this. I still will always probably default to this vertical fashion here, but the horizontal, this is gonna have to be something I'm gonna have to be comfortable with. So that's that. So you see that there, and they're just talking about that's a better method, and then method 3 is your best method, and that's where you're adding the event listener inside of the JavaScript file, which you didn't do here, but you added the event listener here. So basically, we'll create a loop, basically, that it's not in this one, but there'll be a loop where it will constantly add event listeners, so it's listening for any click. So when you do a loop, it'll click it every time, versus these other examples, it's only going to be a one click and it's done. So when you click it, it'll work, and then you try clicking it again, and again, and again, and again, and subsequent clicks will not work unless you refresh the browser, because it has to reinitialize the HTML, and it only runs once. If you put the add event listener in your JavaScript file, it will fire it every time it senses a click action. So, and that just says that in less words there. And then it's breaking that out, the method 3 there. Again, this will be in the example that I'll show you towards the end. So then they have a section here about, I know I said go through the README, or the self-check at the end, but I guess we'll just do this way. It's kind of going quick. So this talks about callback functions. Do not skip this. This document is very important. It's actually a very long article. It's not super long. I'm blown in, so it's big, but there's a lot to it. It's very meaty, and there's a lot to it. Basically, in a nutshell, callbacks seem like a sticking point for people who are new to programming. Simply put, callbacks are functions that are passed into another function as an argument. With the many ways one can define a function in JavaScript, it's no wonder why callbacks get so confusing. And that is very true. So basically, as I said, a callback is essentially creating a function that produces a return statement or return value that can be used as an argument in another function. That's essentially, there's a lot of nuances to that, but that's essentially what it does. And so you learn about how that works through this article that I won't cover because it's really long. It's really meaty. You gotta take your time. And I'm not sure. I even took my time. Right. I'm not sure I completely understand it, but I did. Um, Actually, I need to bookmark that. Let's just do that while I'm doing this here. Something good to bookmark. I'm not gonna call it that because it doesn't make any sense. But I'm just gonna say callback. You guys should do this too if you like to bookmark stuff. I'm just gonna do it understanding callbacks. There we go. Callback functions. There we go. Whatever. Cool. All right. So then there's another document sprinkled in there that this is another one that you're probably going to want to bookmark. I won't go through it, but this is all of the event possibilities that you can have manipulated in the DOM through JavaScript. There's a ton. Today we'll basically just be focusing on click, excuse me, and button. I think there's a button in here somewhere. No, it's click. Just basically click, but these are all the different things. The text doesn't go through all of them, but it's something good to reference. There's no need to memorize that, but just have it handy as a reference. So there's your callback, and it talks about excuse me, the E in the callback's kind of cool. So like this example, this has gone over too in one of the videos that you'll watch in the assignment section. But this is cool because what this does is it takes the add event listener click and we'll go over this too in the editor, but it shows the e.target, which is all the possible. Well, that shows target, but if you do like attribute on there, excuse me, sorry, I just coughed in your ear. The E function shows all the possibilities of that attribute and all the different things that this will just give you the target value. But like in this, you can do target style background, so you can target specific elements inside of it, and that you only want it to create the background blue in this example, or this is console.log just telling you, hey, what is the target of E, and that's really cool. So probably did a really bad job explaining that, but I'm more of a visual guy, so we'll go over this in code, but on the editor. Talking about using iterating through, we talked about earlier, adding iterate through with for each as kind of like a loop, if you will. It's a for each is a method to iterate through each button. And then here's some useful events: click, double click, key press, key down, key up, and there's your practices. And then this is that link to the full explanation we just went over, which is the full reference of all what are they? Make sure I don't say this wrong. The events, the different DOM events. Okay. And there's your additional resources if you want to peruse those. And then here's self-checks that we'll now basically skip over. I was going to do that instead of going through the lesson with you, but I just changed my mind last second. So these are good self-checks. I would say, and I felt comfort. The only reason why I'm doing this video is because I was able to honestly answer all these without any major issues. Granted, I had to click the link and it'll hyperlink you to where the answer is on some of them just to make sure I have an understanding. But I didn't get tripped up on any of them, so I wouldn't have made this video and I wouldn't complete the lesson unless I passed the knowledge check. So I'm always honest with myself, and I encourage you guys to be honest with yourselves as well. So if you feel like you're getting stuck on some of these, go back and re-review. So let's just hit the editor here, so have some fun here at the end. So I created a index2.html and a script2.js. They are both located in that same folder as the original index and script from yesterday, and we're just playing here. So in one of the exercises, it has you create a button. We kind of, excuse me, we kind of went over this already. You have your button ID equals btn click me to and button tag. So let's just work with that. So what they have you do is ignore most of this. Just concentrate on what I have highlighted. So they have you create a constant button, and it's equals that variable equals document query selector hashtag button. Just like yesterday, remember the hashtag is the ID. So we're going to target the button class, and then and then we're going to create a function called alert function. It's going to alert out the text, yay, you did it, when that's fired off. So what happens then, it comes down here, and then we call the button add event listener, which is the click action. So when the button is clicked, it's going to run that function e, which is that parameter for event, and it's going to console log the e event. So that's what that does. So if we run it in the browser, if you run index.html2 or index2.html, you get this, and I brought up DevTools so we can see what it does. So here's the click me to button. Ignore these right here for now. So if you click the click me to, it will bring up that btn as it showed in the JS here. So it's going to add that event listener. It's going to click. It's going to fire off the alert function. It's going to alert, yeah, you did it. And this one did not. It did btn. Why did it do that? Oh, that's because there's two exercises combined in one, so it's kind of messy, I guess. So what it did is it went down and alerted on button ID. That's okay. If you didn't have all this in here, all this down here, it would have console logged or worded to give you the alert, yeah, you did it, but it didn't. Earlier it did, but when I mashed these two together, it stopped. That's okay. You follow the point. So what it does do, this is the more important part. So it logs out E, which is the event. So what that does, I was mentioning it earlier, so in depth here, what it does is it gives you all kinds of cool data to work with. And this is just literally just clicking that, just simply from clicking that click me to. So what it does is this is all part of the inside just by having E, calling E in your log and having that function E. This is all the stuff it gives back to you. All this stuff. So you have click, target, buttons. They don't go over a lot of this, but in the videos they do talk about using some of this stuff to target it. Not in this example, but there's a lot. Look at all this data in here. They don't go over any of it as far as top doesn't yet. But here's your target. So we do actually target the target. So there's your target. It has a button ID of btn, which you already know that because that's in the HTML. But that's what your target attribute holds. So you can literally target, pun intended, I suppose. You can target any one of these attributes and display it or do something with it when it equals something. And the videos that you watch will go over that on that keyboard example. So that's pretty cool. And then moving on, down here is the next exercise. So you have buttons as a node list. So it looks and acts something like an array, but note that a node list is not an array. I repeat, a node list is not an array. It acts like it, but it's not. So like that's in the text somewhere. Since we didn't go through the knowledge check. Yeah. So query returns a node list containing. Let's see. It's important to note that when using query select all, which we didn't use, but just bear with me there. The return value is not an array. It looks like an array and somewhat acts like an array, but it's really a node list. The big distinction is that several array methods are missing from node lists. So you got methods for arrays, as we've already went over in past videos, that are missing from node lists. So just remember that a node list, even though it looks like an array, it is not an array, and you can convert it to an array. And it even says here, one solution if problems arise is to convert the node list into an array, and you can use array.from to do that. So you can do that, but just keep a mental note of that. So this is creating a constant buttons equals, oh, I'm sorry, I guess it did do it all. Query select all. So this is going to take the button attribute and query select all, and it's going to be called buttons. So anytime we call buttons, we're actually query selecting all the buttons. And in this example, buttons is the ID container. Here's all the buttons it's going to target. So it's going to target all three of those with ID 1, 2, and 3. It's going to ignore this button that we had, click me to, because that is not inside the container that it's targeting. So here we have that loop I was talking about. Use the for.each. Ooh, I get off the toolbar there. Method to iterate through each button. So you have buttons.forEach and prints buttons, and then that expression is ran. So it's basically a loop, and it's going to loop through this content until each button is iterated through. Button.addEventListener. So we're going to add an event listener with a click function or click activity with an empty function input, and then it's going to fire off the alert button ID when it's clicked. So if it's clicked, if the button's clicked, it's going to alert out and it's going to give us the button ID. So if we run that in real time, and I'm sorry this video is getting long, but it's important to get this stuff out to you guys. If you do click me, there's reports out IDs that has an ID of 1, as we've seen in the HTML, ID of 1. Click 2, or click me 2, there's your ID of 2, and ID of 3. So that's how that works. If I went a little fast, which I did, rewind me a bit to understand this, because it's important to understand these for each loops. I call them loops, but they're really methods. The for each method and how to use that with an event listener, because I think we're going to be doing a lot of that, especially since this is now like the third time I've read about this in this module alone for top. That's why I need to get comfortable, and if you're not, you probably should as well, about using these equal the arrow functions for your expressions. Yes, you could write it out, but it looks like this is pretty clean, so getting to know to at least use this method with when you're doing DOM manipulation is probably an important thing to do. So I'll probably be changing my tune on that. So anyway, that is all. I won't make this video any longer than it needs to be. So I hope you enjoyed the ride today and the journey, and thanks for coming along with me, and I hope you learned something and had a little fun at the same time. Please like, share, and subscribe for more content, and let me know in the comments how your guys' understanding of this module ending has gone, and then your understanding of DOM manipulation has gone so far. And with that said, until next time, see ya.